because that's another fantastic element of this series. First, there's Ash. Pokemon were all memorable in their own way. We got Staraptor, one of the coolest birds around. Torterra, who kinda sucked, but at least as a Turtwig, it was great thanks to its speedy battle style. It turned into a great air battler. The hilarious Gibble and his Draco Meteor, and last but certainly not least, Infernape. Hands down, one of Ash's all-time greatest Pokemon in not just strength, but also one of the best in terms of development and character arc. More on that later though. Now, it's not just Ash's Pokemon that really make the series stand out. What's amazing about the Diamond and Pearl series is that the companion Pokemon are also really memorable in their own right. With Dawn, we have the amazing Piplup. Although he can be kind of bratty at times, he's definitely the companion Pokemon with the most personality. Then there's Baniri, who sims over Pikachu, the energetic Pachirisu, the tough Mamoswine that went through a similar obedience arc as Ash's Charizard, Ambipom, who was perfectly set up for contests, we'll talk about the release later, Cyndaquil, the Heart Gold Soul Silver promotion, and Togekiss that was just kinda handed to her last minute. Okay, so the last few weren't the best examples, but they're still pretty memorable Pokemon. Also, it's worth mentioning that Dawn was the first companion and only companion until Gold to have a full team, so that's pretty awesome. Then there's Brock's Pokemon, and even they were memorable. We got Sudowoodo, who evolved from the baby Bonds line that Brock brought over from AG, Crobat, who would just not give Brock a break when it comes to the ladies, and the insanely overpowered Happiny that perfectly fits Brock's new Pokemon Dr. Gold. All of them. Every single Pokemon that's part of the main cast really added to the enjoyment of the Diamond and Pearl series, as they should since most of these games. When thinking back to the Diamond and Pearl series, incredible battles and contests always come to mind. While the gym structure itself wasn't much different, battles had some of the coolest strategies in play up until this point. Ash vs. Volcure is an especially standout battle, as Ash not only had to convince Volcure to actually keep participating in battles, but this was also where Infernape finally mastered Blaze. And speaking of Infernape, the Hearthstone Tag Battle has to be one of the show's best non-league tournament arcs. During this tournament, contestants were paired up with a partner who they would have to battle alongside. And of course, Ash was paired up with Paul of all people. As you could imagine, the two are really out of touch when it comes to working together. But what really sets this arc apart is that they really don't become more in sync over time. In fact, the opposite is true, as the two's training styles clash here more than ever, which is extremely notable when Ash takes in Paul's recently released Chimchar. Contests, on the other hand, received a major blow from the advanced generation. Visually speaking, they were played up as a much bigger deal, with characters often dressing up and using bulk capsules to give their Pokemon flashy entrances. And we even got to see Dawn and May meet during the Wallace Cup, where they would battle it out in the finals. Dawn was sort of in a depressive state at the time due to a losing streak, but managing to defeat May helped her overcome it. It was kind of weird to see Dawn win, as she definitely had much less experience than May, but it certainly posed her as a talented coordinator. And speaking of being a talented coordinator, the Korean Festival did a great job showing off everything Dawn had learned while on her journey. While she did lose to Zoe in the end, it was definitely close, and demonstrated just how close Dawn was getting to her dream. But the real question is, how does this stack up to the Sinnoh League? Man, I am just nailing these transitions. In a surprising twist, Ash decided to bring back a ton of his past Pokemon for the event. We got to see Cyndaquil evolve into Quilava, Sceptile take down Darkrai, and of course, the return of a very handsome Noctowl. It also didn't feel like Ash's Sinnoh Pokemon got shafted, as he exclusively used them in his fight against Paul, which many still consider to be the best battle in the entire anime. I know I do. Sorry, Ash vs. Kukui. Sure, the ending with Tobias was a bit disappointing, but this arc just showed how strong Ash has become. Before Best Wishes came along, that is.
Despite the endless formulaic filler that plagues most of DP, I'm here to state the good things about Team Rocket. This series really fleshes out Jessie and James's backstories. The infamous Jessicon returns, and we're even introduced to a new character from Jessie's past. Jessie herself probably had the most development out of the trio in this series, as her decision to start doing contests came in full force. Unlike AG, I thought it was cool that she disguised herself as just one character this time, Jesselina, and kind of developed her own fan base. While Dawn and her rivals often had very cute or cool-looking appeals and combinations, Jesselina's battle style was really unique and different. It was so awesome to get episodes with Jessie one-ridden, to the point where she actually got to be a major rival in the Grand Festival and was among the top 4 finalists. DP was also home to one of Jessie and James' best Pokemon teams. I know most of these Pokemon were caught during AG, but it feels like they actually did stuff in this series. Mega, Carnivine, Lime Jr., Dustox, Viper, Wobbuffet, and Meowth, of course, made solid contributions to major moments in the series. I loved how Jesse and James borrowed each other's Pokemon for contests and even the Poke Ringer tournament. One of my favorite episodes is the one where Jesse gets sick and James takes over for her by disguising himself as Jesselina, and he actually wins the ribbon for her. Aside from contests and general trio shenanigans though, Team Rocket played a solid role in the Galactic Arc as well. They initially assisted in stealing the Atom Core from the Eternity Inn, and then with eventually realizing how much Team Galactic's evil plans could affect the fate of the universe, they went undercover as Galactic Crunks and helped Luger in his investigation. As far as other Team Rocket characters go, I wish we could have seen Giovanni play more of a role, but it's nice to see Biff and Cassidy, Butch and Cassidy, come back for an episode. Even though it was kind of dumb and probably my least favorite out of their appearances. Anyway, let's shift our focus to the other evil team of the series. The Team Galactic arc, in my opinion, is one of the best villain arcs in the entire anime, trailing just behind the seemingly untouchable Flare-Hawk. It was a drastic upgrade from the boring and quite frankly disappointing awkward Magma arc. The Galactic arc, however, not only had solid build-up, but also had an awesome and compelling payoff. Tons of dangerous, ruthless villains, often taking drastic measures to get what she wanted. Heck, even in a real two-parter, she literally had her salamence turn forests to the ground with its flamethrower, putting innocent wild Pokemon in danger. We've never seen anything like this before, aside from a typical movie villain in a Pokemon poster, so it's actually refreshing to see a consistent villain be such a threat. The consistency was right. From the beginning of VP, Jay, Cyrus, the Legendaries, and the rest of Team Galactic had frequent appearances and many smaller missions building up to the actual arc involving the creation trio Light Trio. The writers did a good job showing Cyrus' obsessive downward spiral, leading him to perish in the new world of the Legends created. What I loved about this arc, which set it apart from previous villain arcs, is that Ash, Dawn, and Rock were deeply and significantly involved in the plot, with their connections to Azelf, Vesper, and Nixon respectively. These connections were intertwined with other major events in the series, including Dawn's first day as a trainer, the Wallace stuff, and even right after Ash's whole battle with Blade the Food. Although DP's pacing was a bit off at times, its storytelling and continuity were woven together pretty seamlessly. In addition to Ash, Dawn, and Rock, I also loved that so many other characters were involved in saving the day. Looker, Cynthia, Professor Rowan, Gary, and even Team Rocket had a big part to play, as I mentioned before. Also, can we talk about how Gary pretty much watched Jay and her team go down in the lake as their ship exploded? I'm pretty sure this show is for kids.
God is doing me. I'm on that page, same as you. Throughout the course of the anime, there's been some amazing, memorable rivals. But there's also been quite a few duds. Diamond and Pearl introduced the most rivals for one series up until that point, for both Ash and Dawn. And as a whole, I'd say the quality was pretty consistent across the board. Of course, Paul was Ash's main rival, but Barry was certainly a worthy secondary. He more or less acts exactly how he does in the games, always having high energy and low patience. I'm just wondering if anyone ever paid their fines. One rival introduced early on, however, was Manto, who was unique as he served as a rival to both Ash and Dawn. Manto was split between gym battles and contests, so he just decided to go for both. While he was definitely more of a coordinator than a battler, he was able to make it to the Sinnoh League, as well as the Grand Festival, always remaining calm and collected. Even that one time he was framed for a crime. Ash also had a minor rivalry with Conway, but we really didn't get to see him much, which was a real shame, because he was one of the funniest characters Pokemon ever created, even if he's basically a glorified stalker. As for Dawn, her main rival was undeniably Zoe, who always seemed to be one step ahead of her. Their rivalry was definitely on the friendlier side though, with both happy to give the other a hand when it came to training. One moment that stuck out was when they first met at the Jubilite contest, and Zoe told Dawn that she'd see her in the finals. While this didn't happen at the Jubilite contest, this one line foreshadows the two's final match at the Grand Festival. And while Zoe still won the match, Dawn was certainly a lot closer to her level than when she started. As for Dawn's other rivals, Eddie was a childhood friend who shared the same dream. He wasn't the most memorable character out there, but as the childhood friend cliche goes, he did have a crush on Dawn. She rejected him. Lastly, there's Ursula, the mean one. She was introduced fairly late into the series, but served to push Dawn to her absolute limit. She learned about Dawn's fear of Flustle and Mina thanks to a childhood incident, and did everything she could to take advantage of that. But in the end, this was actually what helped Dawn get over her fear. Oh, and you could also count Jesselina as a rival, but no.
Alright, so you might have noticed how Paul was kind of glossed over a bit, and that's because we saved the best for last.
As Ash's main rival of the series, he was done extremely well, and is one of the best things about this series. One of the problems with AG is that Ash didn't really have any major rivals, and that might be due to the fact that the writers simply didn't know how to give an experienced Ash a good rival yet. Well, it looks like Diamond and Pearl found the solution with Paul. What makes him work so well is that not only was he a jerk rival that we wanted to see Ash beat, but he also challenges Ash's views and ideals when it comes to racing his Pokemon. For the longest time, Ash has stuck with the same mentality, that with enough training and support, any Pokemon can be strong. Here comes Paul, who's the complete opposite, and only cares about a Pokemon's raw strength. This always causes the two to clash, because Paul constantly puts Ash down for his training methods. What makes this rivalry even better is the fact that Paul is confirmed to have traveled and competed in the same leagues as Ash. So not only does he have a different viewpoint, but he also has just as much experience as Ash. It's not like he just started his journey and is suddenly cocky for no reason. Trip. Unlike Gary, who constantly teased Ash, his rivalry with Paul is a lot more personal. It's all about Ash trying to prove his beliefs. So when he loses to Paul, it hurts. We see this in their battle at Lake Acuity. Paul not only destroys Ash's team, but absolutely destroys his spirit. Now, as good of a rival as Paul is, what truly made this rivalry was the final ingredient, Chimchar. It's a Pokemon with immense power thanks to its play ability, but Paul could never bring out his true potential, so he gave up on it. However, Ash didn't give up on Chimchar, and with his training style, he was not only able to fully evolve it into Infernape, but also master the powerful blade that Paul was originally trying to bring out. The rivalry all depended on Chimchar, because if Ash failed with it, that would mean that Paul was right all along. That's why the final battle of the Sinnoh League is often regarded as one of the best battles in the entire anime. It wasn't just another rival battle. It was a battle with a lot of personal stakes in it for both Ash and Infernape. And on top of that, it's a battle of rivalry that was built up very well from the very beginning of the series. And that brings us to the final and most important positive element. The best thing about Diamond and Pearl is the fact that for the most part, this series knew where they wanted to go from the beginning. They had a general plan and direction. The most important arc in Diamond and Pearl is Ash and Paul's rivalry. The reason it was pulled off so well was the fact that this was a plan for the series all along. Whether Ash won or lost the Sinnoh League, the end goal for Diamond and Pearl was always going to be that final battle between Ash and Paul. Since his debut in episode 2, Paul's had a huge influence on Ash, and even when he's not there, he still manages to leave an impact. Everything Ash does in this series is not only to win the Sinnoh League, but more importantly, to defeat Paul. So when we finally reach that moment at the end of the series, after the constant battles, counters, and conflicts, it's extremely satisfying, as the anime accomplished what it set out to do. It's not just about Ash and Paul though. Ron and even Braun get general direction as well. The moment we meet Zoe, she says she wants something Ron in the final. And what do you know, they actually do that in the Grand Festival. That's the overall goal of the trying to reach with Dawn's character. There's also Ash's A-Mom that was always destined to do with Dawn from the beginning until it wasn't. And after Brock, although not as obvious, it's throughout the series. Almost like the anime knew this would be Brock's final outing, so they wanted to slowly set up this reason to leave. Then there's our main character's connection with the Lake Trio. This was teased back in the very first episode, and as the series continued, we would slowly see it build up to the Team Galactic arc. Nothing really feels random in this series. For the most part, everything seems well thought out. I said for the most part. In my opinion, this is what makes for a really good series. When they have something planned out from the beginning and successfully executed. And that wraps up all of the positive points about the Diamond and Pearl series. Now, although this series gets a lot of praise, it still has its downside. So let's get into that.
Ash, his companions, and even Team Rocket have pretty solid teams of Pokemon throughout the series. But there's a few that sadly fell through the cracks due to unnecessary releases and just bad writing. Let's take a look at some of these disrespectful models. What started out as a touching story of Takemiya joining the team in AG after Arbok and Weezing were released, eventually turned into this. During James and Gardenia's tag battle against Ash and Dawn, Gardenia sees Takemiya's potential and suggests that James read it and repair to learn Drain Punch. James lets his insecurities as a trainer get the best of him, which influences his decision to leave Takemiya with Gardenia. Really, James? I mean, it's nice to see that James is thinking about what's best for his Pokemon, but this excuse to give it away just comes out of nowhere. It's just sad to see Pokemon time and time again that their beliefs would be given to minor characters never to be seen or heard from again, which leads me to yet another similar situation. And this one was a real heartbreaker. Jesse's Dustox. Dustox was not only a frequent participant in Jesse's contests and tournaments, but was also instrumental in winning Jesse her first contest rep in the EVP. Jessie also had a really strong bond with Dustox, more so than any of her other Pokemon, I dare to say, which is why fans felt so cheated and sad when she released it after so many fond memories together. This was pretty much bye-bye Butterfree all over again. While it was a real tearjerker of an episode, I just find it frustrating when Pokemon are carried over from the previous region, only to be replaced halfway through as if they were nothing. Hadn't we suffered enough with Arbok and Weasley's release? Anyway, that's enough for the Rocket Mon. And now on to Ash's Torterra. Oh boy. What really disappoints me about Torterra is the interesting build-up that kind of went nowhere. It's a shame because I love the Trick line in general, and I was so excited to see it progress during Ash's journey, especially since it was one of his earliest sin on capture. But after evolving, I don't think he's ever seen the winner major battle. Looking back at his 5 gym battles he was in, I can't believe Torterra's defining achievement was helping Ash win his first 2 gym matches. As a person, while I personally love the relationship it had with Paul Torterra, it's a shame all of that fell flat and it didn't really accomplish much in the later episodes. Finally, before our friend Zach gets biggest contender, we have Glasgow. Glasgow was also another one on Ash's team that had such potential and a great personality, but similar to Gengar and Dragonite in Journey, it wasn't used for him. We got somewhat of a reception being used in Ash's Snowy battle against Paul, but that's about it.
Alright, now when it comes to disrespected Pokemon, we save the best for last, or more like the worst. Ambipom. So as mentioned earlier, Ash's Apom was a Pokemon that was perfectly set up for contest thanks to seeing May compete in the Cancel Grand Festival back in AG. You would then see its interest in contests be further developed during the beginning of Ash's Sinnoh journey. So when it's time for Ash and Dawn to trade, it's actually done really well because it makes sense. You know what doesn't make sense? Releasing it to play ping pong. Like, what the actual Diamond and Pearl? I get that maybe you wanted to make space for some of Dawn's new team members, and honestly, it wouldn't even be that bad if it was a Pokemon like Pachirisu or even Veneering. But Ambipom, one of the most well-developed Pokemon, for a Cynical with 0 personality and an underdeveloped Togekiss, I seriously want to know what was going through the anime staff's head when deciding this. Like, you literally spent all this time setting up this Pokemon story arc only to throw it out the window in the dumbest way possible. And to add insult to injury, they made Ambipom lose in his last contest ever in the episode prior. It doesn't get any more disrespectful than that. This was straight up character assassination. I honestly hate that this happens so much, and it'll always be one of the worst things about Diamond and Pearl.
Cupcakes are great for office parties. If you work from home office parties, edible delivers, order online or in store.
Aside from disrespected Pokemon, the DP writers really dropped the ball on 2 potentially big captures for Ash's Sinnoh team. The episode Masticosis seemed to be a clear setup for Ash to catch a Hippopotas after saving it from being stranded on a steep cliff. You'd think after a wild goose chase to rescue it from Team Rocket's clutches, Ash would have caught it, but nope. This episode actually turns out to be pretty pointless, with Ash determined to return Hippopotas back to its herd. And to add salt to the wound, this Hippopotas actually returned later in the Biff and Cassidy episode, but they still don't get back. So what was the point? The second episode is probably the worst offender of the 2. Riolu and Lucario fans alike got lucky this year with Ash catching a Riolu in Pokemon Journey, but imagine if Ash had caught a Riolu early on, especially in its native region. The special Aura Sphere-wielding Riolu featured in the 2-parter Pokemon Ranger and the Kidnapped Riolu developed a really strong connection with Ash, especially after learning that Ash shared the same Aura ability. This special not only showed continuity from Lucario and the Mystery of Mew, but also introduced an interesting side quest for Hunter J, who wanted to capture Riolu. Too bad Ash and Riolu's bond was all for nothing, as Riolu decides to stay with the breeder who originally raised it. Man, but do you think Ash having a Lucario is overhyped or not? You gotta admit, this was still frustrating. At least we have the one from Pokemon Journey, so I guess it was worth the wait after all.
Oxford Dictionary defines the word filler as a thing put in space or container to fill it. Wait, wrong one. A person or thing that fills a space or container. Dang it, that's not it either. Oh, here we are. Filler is a good 40% of the Diamond and Pearl series. The series follows both Ash and Dawn's journeys, which in theory should take the same length as the Advanced Generation. The difference, however, is that Advanced Generation wrapped all that up in its 3rd season, and the 4th was sort of an extra adventure. Diamond and Pearl honestly could have just been 3 seasons. Or, if they did need a 4th, they could have added some kind of extra story. Perhaps something involving the Battle Zone. We didn't even see the Battle Zone until Pokemon Journeys, 10 seasons later. What's up with that? The show's pacing had a tendency to be really inconsistent. There's often gaps of 20 to 30 episodes between gym battles. Sure, they could fill that time with a contest or villain arc, but most of the episodes involve our heroes meeting a character for a day, solving their problem, and then never seeing them again. Oh, and Team Rocket always squeezes their way in. Maybe if we're lucky, someone could learn a move or something, but too many times, episodes just feel pointless. Also, for a season literally called Galactic Battles, there was surprisingly little Team Galactic to be found. This is also where we began the infamous one-year gap between Ash's 7th and 8th gym battles. Sure, there was a lot going on within that year, like the return of Brandon, Ash and Paul's Lick Acuity battle, and even Twin League Festival, but you can really tell at times that they were just dragging the story out. They even gave Dawn another losing streak, just to buy some time until the Grand Festival started. But once it does, the pacing picks up tremendously, with the Grand Festival leading right into Ash vs. Volkner, which is soon followed by the Sinnoh League. However, it felt like for every meaningful episode, there was one about a group of Psyduck that just refused to move. Like, this was one of the game's roadblocks, but I don't think it needed to be made into a full-length episode. Go part of it, and in our opinion, it's the Heart Gold and Soul Silver arc. To help promote the release of these games, Pokemon aired a 5-part arc in which our heroes meet 2 characters from Johto, Lyra and Corey. Now this arc actually is a pretty cool start, with Dawn receiving a Cyndaquil egg from Lyra, and Corey revealing that he wants to be a Pokemon breeder, leading Rock to become a sort of mentor figure to him. However, everything starts to go downhill when the two become temporary travel companions. The more we saw of Lyra in particular, the more annoying she got. He was basically an in-canon shipper. Her defining goal as a character basically resorted to making Corey more confident, and for some reason, he always called Dawn Jane. Actually, let's touch upon that, because it made no sense to me back in the day. In the Japanese version, he called Dawn Hikari, which is her Japanese name, Hikari, only with an N sound at the end. In Japanese, adding an N sound to a name can be seen as a cute nickname, but my god did that get lost in translation. One moment that perfectly sums up Lyra's character is the scene in which the gang has to share 7 cookies among the 5 of them. Corey does the math and determines that everyone should get 1.4 cookies, but then Lyra basically says screw it and grabs 2. Like I said, she's just so annoying. Corey, on the other hand, was definitely more bearable, and I actually quite liked him acting as Brock's student. However, the whole arc seems to focus on his confidence issues. He's definitely more of a thinker than a doer, similar to how Go was in the beginning of Pokemon Journeys. However, this character arc just feels kind of out of place, especially since they only had 5 episodes to develop him. The episode where Corey sees the most growth is when he catches a Gibble. The episode plays it out as if Ash is going to be the one to catch Gibble, but then Corey swoops in and catches it for himself. I get the intention here, to show Corey's development by having to catch a strong Pokemon, but then Ash catches his own Gibble 12 episodes later. You see why I find this arc pointless? It ends with Dawn competing in the Lily Pad contest, with Lyra and Corey not really serving much of a point to being there. And then they fly back to Johto after getting their butts kicked by Ash and Dawn. This definitely wasn't the worst arc Pokemon had, but it was just dull and kind of pointless. And for how good Heart Gold and Soul Silver were, they definitely deserve better.
You know what else deserves better? The ending. As much as I love Diamond and Pearl, I myself will admit that the way they ended the story, specifically for Ash and Dawn, was not the best. I'll start with Dawn, as it isn't as bad, but honestly, she should have won the Grand Festival. They took her all the way to the Grand Festival finals, and made her face off against her main rival, Zoe. Because Dawn never beat Zoe before, this would have been the perfect moment to do so. But they didn't, because I guess main characters aren't allowed to reach their goals or whatever. There's also a really weird excuse they give for her not being able to travel with Ash anymore. Dawn was so ready to go to cancel with Ash, but she doesn't because she gets a last-minute call from that fashion lady from that one random episode because they wanted Maniri to be a model for them or something, I don't know, man. Excuse me? They could have honestly given a better excuse, like maybe Dawn wanted to do contests at home with Johto, not this random modeling crap. It's never even mentioned how that went at the return in black and white, so that just shows how last-minute and irrelevant this was. But nothing will be worse than the absolute disrespect Ash got. After having the best battle in the entire anime, Ash is then put up against the infamous Orion. He was clearly created to prevent Ash from winning the league. He's a complete embodiment of the anime's stubbornness to not let Ash win. To the point that they even gave him legendaries to finish the job quickly. Yeah, it's cool to see Ash take down some legends, showing how strong he is, but is it really worth making him lose the Sinnoh League this badly? What makes it even worse is that the other guy who makes it to the finals did worse than Ash. So Tobias never existed, Ash pretty much would have been able to win the league. All this did was spoil the end to Ash's Sinnoh League run. A 4-year journey gone to waste after a single episode. You really hate to see it. Alright, that wraps up all the major elements of Diamond and Pearl. Now it's time for the final verdict of this series. And after rewatching every single episode, I can ultimately say that Diamond and Pearl is in fact a great series. Shocker, I know. Now obviously, it's not a perfect series. just pointed out its flaws. But honestly, I think Animated Ginger put it best in his series ranking video when he said that Diamond and Pearl feels like the definitive Pokemon anime. It follows the same structure that was introduced in the original series, but does the absolute best with it. Yes, it has some pacing issues when it comes to filler, and I will tip my hat to AG for doing a better job when it comes to that. But what series doesn't have its fair share of boring filler? Other than that, for the most part, Diamond and Pearl excels at everything else. The gym battles are much better, the concepts are better, the league was the best with them all at this point. We get lots more development and training episodes for both Ash and Dawn, and this series did a better job at treating our main characters as equal. Yeah, yo, it's cool that you're a double protagonist and all, but Dawn was kind of the OG at that. We even get a successfully executed evil team arc the series built up pretty well. And of course, the biggest highlight is Ash's main rivalry with Paul, an element that was missing in AG, unfortunately. Afterwards, we get Black and White, where they attempt to solve reboot. Then we get series like XY, Sun and Moon, and Journey that all do things a bit differently to shake up the formula. Because of this, the anime hasn't really felt the same since then. Now, I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but just that Diamond and Pearl is the last to stay true to what the Pokemon anime was originally meant to be. In our opinion, he was the one to perfect the formula that was introduced in the original series, and even feels like a conclusion to the first era of the Pokemon anime. And that's why we believe that Diamond and Pearl anime is a great Pokemon series. It's a pretty far one, if I do say so myself.
Do you think any of us will look back in our lives and regret things we didn't buy? Or the places we didn't go? The Detroit Red Wings have made themselves a signing, and it's a very interesting one right here. Via AMA Sports Agency on Twitter, we have learned that goaltender Magnus Hellberg has signed a contract with the Red Wings that applies for the rest of the season. Now, Magnus Hellberg, I think some people might be familiar with him because he did have an extended amount of time playing in North America, but just getting things out of the way here first. Yeah, Magnus Hellberg, what a name. This is like some Skyrim, Elder Scrolls, Elfen. No, I was about to say Elfen Lied, that's an anime. Elden Ring kind of stuff, yes. Love the name right here, it's definitely Norse. But Magnus Hellberg is a 31-year-old 6'6", 209 goaltender, left-handed catcher as most goaltenders are. He's a big dude, man. 6'6", 209, and his name is Hellberg. Yeah, you don't want to mess with this dude. He was initially a Nashville Predators draft pick back in the 2011 draft, and he has been playing in the KHL the past few seasons. Now, the thing about Hellberg, and by the way, this thing was actually confirmed on the Red Wings website. We'll take a look at this a little bit later. The thing about Hellberg and his overall play in the KHL, it has been pretty good if you only look at the previous few years. Playing for the Kunlun Red Star, the Chinese KHL team, his very first overseas season after playing all this time in the NHL and the AHL, he was pretty good, despite the fact that the Red Star were not a good team. He went 16, 26, and 3, had a 9.26 save percentage and a 2.39, which is honestly pretty good for the talent that he was playing for. And then you can see, playing for the stacked SKA St. Petersburg squad, he was a consistent 940, 927, 930 goaltender with an incredible record to boot. 14-4-1 in his last season, 14-7-3 before that, and then 24-7-3 even further back. This season, though, he hasn't been playing on as good of a team. He's been playing on HK Sochi, where he has a 917 save percentage and 242 goals against. He has lost a lot more games this season. 13, 20, and 4 is his record, which indicates to me that even though this guy might be talented, which we can see in the previous few years of his KHL career, he's playing on one of the weaker teams, and this team, HK Sochi, is definitely not as good as SKA St. Petersburg, so the drop in statistical, analytical production makes a lot of sense, actually. He also suited up for Team Sweden at the Olympic Games, where he had a 927 save percentage and a 2.46 goals against in the 2 games that he played. And now he's heading over to Detroit to finish off the rest of 2021-2022 in Detroit. It's very strange that this is a contract signing for a guy this year and not for next season, but either way, this is what the website says here on DetroitRedWings.com. Netminder posted 242 goals against and a 917 save percentage. By the way, can you see that? Let's move this over. There you go. That looks a lot better. And he represented Team Sweden at the Olympics. This was just a scouting report over here. Just talks about his numbers, all the stuff that we highlighted here before. Also his AHL and NHL history too. New York Rangers, Nashville Predators, Milwaukee Admirals. He also had a stint with the ECHL Cincinnati Cyclones, where he was pretty good as well. But you might have to ask yourself, what exactly is the point here to signing Magnus Hellberg to a contract to finish off the 21-22 season? There was some speculation that I saw on Reddit talking about whether or not he might feel confident that the other goalies in the Red Wing system right now can finish off the year as healthily as you would want them to be. Mostly because with Hellberg, first he had it to Terry Sateri. Toronto signed him, he got turned off waivers the next day by the Arizona Coyotes. Magnus Hellberg is coming into a situation though in the NHL where it's no longer the trade deadline. There isn't the same desire for a Harry Sateri extra goaltender like there would have been a few weeks ago. So maybe because teams are already looking at the playoffs and they're saying, okay, well, our playoff roster is already set in stone, we can't really add anymore. What's the point of claiming this guy on waivers? Maybe there's a higher likelihood that Hellberg comes over to Detroit, clears waivers, and then he's able to suit up here in Motown for the remainder of the season. I don't believe he's actually eligible for the AHL playoffs either, because there was an AHL period where the teams needed to solidify their rosters. You see some teams going out there and sending players onto their list that allows them to play the AHL playoffs, but because Hellberg was a free agent, obviously he's not allowed to do that. So pretty much, this feels more like a tryout to me, like the Red Wings just saying, okay, screw it, we might need another goaltender for next season, Grice might be gone, who really knows what's happening with him. Let's sign this guy on now, see if he clears waivers, and if he plays well enough, we can sign him to a regular deal for 22-23, because there's nothing really to lose here. So for Steve Eisenman and Co, they've just signed themselves Magnus Hellberg, a former Ranger, a former Nashville Predator, a former AHL, ECHL guy, who spent a lot of time bouncing around in different hockey leagues and different hockey teams. He's coming over from HK Sochi, and now he'll be suiting up in Detroit. Let me know what you think about this signing. I hope you enjoyed this particular Charles 99. And bye. It doesn't matter how you play. When the whisper is home, but how you do it. I apologize a lot when I start out these videos, but that's mostly because I want to cover my tracks and make sure things are proper. I'm recording this audio on the afternoon, or no, it's the evening of Wednesday, April 13th, and I will apologize again because we are going to have 3 Canucks videos within the span of 4 videos. I had a video I recorded the other day talking about Miller and Besser that I had intended to upload on Wednesday afternoon, but because there was news of the Red Wings making a signing, that topic got pushed over into what is now going to be today's third video of the day. This comes off of the coattails of an Arizona postgame video, that in which has not been recorded yet. In fact, the game hasn't even been played. That's being played tomorrow. For me, it was yesterday for you. And I wanted to apologize one more time as well, because I know this isn't really a Canucks-related video. Not necessarily. It's sort of there, but it's not really there. And I don't think the Vancouver Canucks are really losing out on anything with this conversation. This is just an interesting story that I think brings itself up when you review what exactly it is the Pittsburgh Penguins have in their own prospect core comparative to what the Vancouver Canucks also wanted for them as well. So, today's video is going over a goaltender who had just wrapped up his Finnish Liga season. Joel Blomqvist, a second-round pick in the 2020 NHL entry draft. He was taken by the Pittsburgh Penguins in the 52nd overall spot. He was touted by some as one of the better goaltenders in the draft. Of course, he wasn't the Yaroslav Askarov who was also going in that season, but Blomqvist, as the name implies, is a European dude. This guy played out of Finnish Liga. He had 2 games played with Karpat in his draft season where he put up a .473 goals against and an 808 save percentage. One of the games he played was in relief. The other game he started, he lost. But he got drafted mostly because of the maturity and poise he displayed at lower levels of play. Playing for the U20 team in Karpat, he had a 931 save percentage, a 166 goals against, and went 26-6-0 in 34 games played. Certainly not bad. The next few years saw Blomqvist jumping around the U20 league for the Karpat team. He played in the regular league, and he also played in the Mestis, which was the second-tier Finnish league, and he was pretty good everywhere he went in his draft plus 1 year. He had another season, and now in his draft plus 2, he was the full-time Liga starter for the Karpat team, where in 20 games played, he put up a 132 goals against average and a 940 save percentage. Definitely not bad numbers in the top league in Finland as a 20-year-old, a recently turned 20-year-old at that. He also played in the playoffs for Karpat as their starter, where in 70 games played, he had a 110 goals against and a 950 save percentage. Now, unfortunately for and Karpat, they lost in Game 7, and this is the review from the Finnish Liga's website right here. In the final game of the postseason for Karpat, you see the stat line that Blomqvist put up in the elimination game. They lost in overtime, but he only let in 2 goals, 42 shots against as well, so this was just a tight game. Ilves versus Karpat, eventually it's Ilves that wins with the 2-1 score in extra time. And unfortunately for Blomqvist, that is the end of this 21-22 season. Now, the reason why I wanted to talk about this player right here, not just because of the stats, oh, he's really good in the league, look at the progression that this guy has. I wanted to just highlight about the pick itself, because Pittsburgh, as we've known over the past few years, they don't really have the best prospect system. They trade away their prospects and their picks a lot because they usually add on assets that help their team in the now. It's not a bad strategy when you have Crosby and Malcolm and Lang all towards the end of their careers, but at the same time, you have to acknowledge there is a timeline towards the future that is sort of uncertain here because of the way the Penguins have constructed their roster over the past few seasons. That being said, though, Blomqvist is one of the better prospects they have right now, and it's been kind of a meme at this point, where Penguins fans will satirically say, oh man, I hate it when we have good prospects in the system because it means we could have traded them away. It's kind of a joke, not really being serious over there. But we still have ourselves this guy who was the second-round pick, as we said, 52nd overall, and the reason I talk about him here with the Vancouver Canucks is because Blomqvist was a name that a lot of Canucks fans sort of got familiar with after the 2020 NHL entry draft. You see, I can't find the exact source, but it was said on the radio a few times as well as on The Athletic somewhere that there was indeed a goaltender that the Vancouver Canucks scouting staff back in 2020 were super high on. Let's go over onto Thomas Strantz's Twitter from October 2020 to highlight this idea. I believe that Joel Blomqvist was that goaltender at the very top of Ian Clark's wish list, and he was prized highly by the Canucks. I think there's a fair bit of disappointment in the Vancouver war room at the moment. Strantz also published an article the next day, the Army's draft edition with Will Arndt Stanchion, and in this article there's a sentence that makes the entire Blomqvist to Pittsburgh thing sting a little bit more if you're Ian Clark or anybody on the Vancouver side that was also interested in this goaltender. You see, the pick that Pittsburgh used to select Blomqvist was 52nd overall. They acquired that pick in the Matt Murray trade when they traded away his rights over to the Ottawa Senators. That pick initially belonged to the Blue Jackets. They sent it over to Ottawa in the Ryan Dzingel trade. You can see the trade tree right here. That was 52nd overall. You want to see the pick that was right before 52nd overall? Well, it happened to be a Red Wings selection. The 51st overall spot for the Red Wings saw them take Theodor Niederbach. But that draft pick is a very interesting one to chronicle. Because this 51st overall pick initially belonged to the LA Kings. The Kings traded down in the 2020 draft and giving this pick to the Red Wings. But you gotta ask yourself, where did LA get this 51st overall 8 months earlier? 8 months before the draft. And they did so in the Tyler Toffoli trade with the Vancouver Canucks. Oh man, old news, right? It's old news. And the Vancouver Canucks are not really all too desperate for goaltending. You know, Demko's here, you have Spencer Knight. No, not Spencer Knight. Oh, that's a completely different player. Spencer Martin, who has been pretty good in the NHL, and who has pretty much earned himself the backup position in Vancouver next year. Not to mention Michael DiPietro, who's been good. Arthur Silovs is also coming into his own as well. The Canucks don't need goaltenders. But, just hearing this, that apparently they really did want this guy, hearing about all the rumors going into the draft that the Vancouver Canucks legitimately had a goaltending target they had their eyes on, only to have that guy go to Pittsburgh one pick after the pick that they initially had was used up. And what was the price of that draft pick, huh? A few games of Tyler Toffoli, 10 games, 10 points in 10 games, and then came back in the postseason, won Vancouver one game against Vegas, and that was it? Like, I'm sorry, Tyler Toffoli, I love the guy. You know I love the guy. I've made so many videos talking about Tyler Toffoli and the impact he has on my favorite teams. Because I'm a Canucks fan, I'm a Canadiens fan, I love seeing what Tyler Toffoli's done. And now in Calgary, he's playing out there, reunited with the other two free agents the Canucks had to re-sign in 2020 in Markstrom and Tanev. They're all there in Calgary. Calgary Canucks are real, man. I appreciate what he did here. It's just, you cannot convince me that Tyler Toffoli trade was a good trade anymore. You can't even try. Because the Canucks probably would have been able to get a goaltender that has been as good as Blomqvist has been in the Finnish Liga so far. And like, that's not to say that Blomqvist is going to be the next Carey Price, prime Carey Price, Patrick Roy, whatever. It's just another option. You know, options are good. And for the Vancouver Canucks, they're a team that doesn't really need extra options. But just having the options there would have been a good thing. Would have been a lot better than playing Tyler Toffoli for 10 games in the regular season and having producing only one of the playoff games that you play when he comes back from injury in that bubble. It's just kind of frustrating to see the success of other guys that the Vancouver Canucks very likely would have had instead when you consider why the Canucks did not get the opportunity to take those players in the first place. Thank you, Jim, for trying to go all in and making this team as good as it was. It's kind of funny because, like, even
Number 2. David Justin. It's not a good idea. So old man Justin like that. Contract is so quickly. This is what we do. They come to this contract just to get rid of him. Yeah, 10 years ago, he was done a lot of things. He's done a really good work. He's taken over the years. He's taken the dog and he's bought it on. He's going to get his weight. So we later on, so we're going to liability, that would be still there. Like, lucky to get 16 done. What's the way? Okay, number 3. John Adams. Ooh, Jack, I heard like an uncle name already. Yes, everyone's well. Rob, I think he has grown. He's got a nerve career, and that's part of his career. So I think that I don't know most of the you're going to get a guy who's half the organization, but baseball, because it's got non-curable nerve damage in the elbow. He can't throw. He can't throw, he can't handle. Nice. Never report from definitely it's not on day, get on day. Tell you what, get those bases. Don't you want to get them to walk their base? Yeah. So, you're not going to play one, but you play the best player. You're falling down. That's a black guy. You're the eye. Seriously, guys, you have to remember, be able to know what he has ownership in God. And he doesn't have to have suggestions. But that's all fine as well. We're working our asses off in the last 6.5 weeks to make this ball club better. You're sitting all over it. It's not a discussion. So we discuss there, not a discussion. This is one thing we did. One of those three guys knows how to play first base. 2. David Justin. You know everybody feels with old man Justin. Why that?
Steinbrenner so pissed at his decline. He won't be a big chunk of his contract. He can really pay for that.
That's 10 years ago. David Justin. He's been a lot of big names. He's been a really over. Take it through here. He's been a dog. He's flying off. Just give his weight. Later than gone. Georgia. Defensive liability. And that's what that's considered. And lucky with 6 games up. What's the way? Okay, number 3. Scott has. Ooh, that like number 8 already. Yes, you said you'll go. Rob, I think you can't throw it. That's our career. Nothing here. That's part of the career. So I think it's a good stuff. I know that's the one because it's no one to take away. You're going to get a guy that can put half the organization in baseball because he's got non-curable nerve damage in his elbow. He can't throw. He can't throw and he can't shoot. Can he do it? Guys, get the report from that point of view. Dead on day. Tell you what, it's on baseball. That's what cares the longer it is. You know, I do. I got to put it together for you. So, you're not going to bring in one, but 3 defensive players. You're hard now. As a black man. From the audience. Seriously, guys, I think you have to remember this is the man. He is the no one. It's just ownership. God. And he doesn't have to make suggestions. But that's all fine as well. Just working our asses off for the last 6.5 years to make this ball club better. You're just already. It's not as good. None of those 3 guys knows how to play first base. Okay, so for the hike, there's the Bunny Trail or Devil's Camp. 10 wins in a row, I'll do it, take a look at it. 10 losses in a row, not necessarily, but 10 wins in a row, true. And then if they lose game 11, you rate them back to that's change. You change. Or maybe it's hard to win 11 games in a row. But Florida has a good chance, so they won 10 in a row. The next game is up in the Commanders. So they could very well get 11 with that win, and I would think they probably should. Then they can also play 3, so it could get 12 because they've already beaten 3 during this win streak. And then they're at home against Toronto and Tampa, a little bit more difficult there. Then they go on the road to Boston, Ottawa, and Montreal. Ottawa and Montreal don't have anything really to play for right now, which is fine. And for Boston, let's see how Boston does against Florida. I'm not that convinced unless they have a healthy roster that they can talk with in transition games. It never feels like Florida's up the game, and it feels like there's. I mentioned this there's spring load, meaning that transition is so dangerous. You got to sit down in their zone, you got the puck carry, you're getting pressure, you turn the puck over to you. Alright, we decided, okay, so we'll put that one aside. Alright, so we get the pressure, yeah, the cycle, that's not going okay. and turnovers at this point. So this is the danger with Florida, and they can play various styles of hockey. Now, the rest of the is four cases the big one, 114 points overall. So they're going to win. They're going to get Tennessee first, and then it's a matter of Florida, one second, Colorado, the other, the final, and what happens there. Now, the lead scores Jonathan Huberdeau, who is no longer a secret, no longer underrated. I don't think he's in the heart because I think Matthews has that thrown up. But for Huberdeau, it's been a fantastic season. 75 games, 30 goals, 7 games, 15 points. As I pointed out, it's not really as important whether or not a guy wins the heart as it is whether or not he wins the Stanley Cup. And that's a trophy for everybody on the team. Eiserman was not a guy who won a bunch of heart trophies early in his career, and then, those Stanley Cups towards the end of it, and it helped out a lot. Barkov, 62 games, 34 goals, 48 assists, 82 points. Again, if I had to choose between the two, I would still take Barkov as better forward. Barkov has been such a beast in every area of the game, and I've been an admirer of Barkov for years. Reinhardt has been a perfect addition. 72 games, 20 goals, 48 assists, 76 points. When you look at the additions to the Florida lineup, in fact, that almost all of them work, that tells you that their staff, their coaching staff, and their scouts. Amateur scouts get a lot of attention. So your amateur scouts can go out and decide who's going to get drafted, or draft. But at least they give you that idea that it's like the GM, or maybe the assistant GM makes this final decision. Maybe your head scout makes this final decision. But that's an area that we talk about a lot. The pro scouting side of things that we get talked about nearly much, and I think it's an underappreciated part of the game. Florida's pro scouts have made this a juggernaut. Florida's pro scouts almost never win. And whether it's grabbing beats on a boys line on 300s, whether it's picking up a guy like Reinhardt from Buffalo and knowing that he'll fit in, he would take the industry with fun. Aaron Ekblad, all of this, and yet they're still winning. 51 games, 50 goals, 42, 57 points. It is hard to think of a team that is expensive putting up those kind of goals and points without experiencing a huge game in their play. Florida has not experienced that. Anthony Fire, 67 games, 31 goals, 24 assists, 55 points. Fire bouncing around the league. In Ottawa, it's good times, and then Dry Boss, of course, Columbus, he had a rough goal then. And there was some question about whether or not he really was going to be a top 6 forward or what would happen. And then when Florida was kind of, well, this might be a final chance. Now he's a legit top 10, top 6 for Florida. And just overall, that 31 goals probably was one of the better goal scorers right now in the NHL. And for me, 74 games, 22 goals, 81 of 53 points. That's the really good guy. That's a pro guy. Basically, or the general manager of one thing I want to get ready. So Bill Steele gets a lot of credit here as well. And then Sam Bennett, that picked up the counting. It's worked. 65 games, 27 goals, 19 assists, 26 points. He was able to produce that Wayne Calvin. There's no Wayne Calvin trade him, but I don't think that was going to happen in Calvin. So it is one of those oddities when they saw guys like the player with Wayne Bennett putting up goals and 22 them. Then I don't know if they would have that team. They just need to chemistry to see these players. The fact that you can mix and match these lines too is ridiculous. And all 4 lines, I don't have everybody on the board obviously, but it is all 4 lines. Then there's Ricky Anton Lundell. Yeah, it's a very straightforward. Lots of people don't down by 60 already in the conversation for themselves. In 50 games, 18 points. The dance that can tell you that self-success is a little bit frequently fun. I didn't get that. And so the fact that he's also got Barkov going away, it is ridiculous. Barkov and Huberdeau all go down for, but really the important thing for Florida has been really smart development and language, that ability to bring in players that just fit in the sport. Then you look at the goaltending. Bobrovsky, 36 minutes, 39, 12 saves percentage, Spencer 19%, I know that's 8%. Bobrovsky has 3 shutouts, Knight has 1. So those numbers can tell you, so the goaltending hasn't been great, but Bobrovsky's had a very good season. Now his save percentage has taken a bit of a dive or something here, but Spencer Knight, since going to the AHL, has got a game back. And so the separation between the two goaltenders kind of resembles last year. dead money. The team wasn't going anywhere. Now they're looking, and we're not talking about dead money and that contract to get extra draft picks. They don't need to do that anymore. Their power play is much better than what we were receiving, 23.9%. Very good number. 79.8%. That still was around average. I would expect that number to get better once we get into the playoffs. And then your goal differential plus 99 is ridiculous. If you lose by Florida, if you lose to Florida by a goal, then you have to win by an average because they're averaging more than a goal advantage over their opponent. That plus 99 plays back to they lost 1-1 games. So it's ridiculous. At home, they're 32-6. They've been good at home all year. On the road, they started out kind of rough, 5-5-5. Since then, 22-9-6 overall. So that 5-5-5 is 17-4-1. 17-4-1. So pretty good. Pretty good on the road all of a sudden, and they're setting some records with the road record. So how did we get this 10 game in this one? All right, start off with Montreal, and here it is the interesting and important part of this game. Only 2 of the teams they beat in this 10-game winning streak are teams that are currently above the playoffs. However, playing schedules are given where the games on that schedule. That's impressive. Montreal was tied 4-4 after 2. They did win it 7-4. They got 46 shots. One thing with Florida, there's no such thing as a bad shot. You can everywhere. You go off. That works. There's a game-winning goal scored at 119 in the third series by Jonathan Huberdeau. His 3 starts in the Wahlberg. Wahlberg had a really good season for Florida again. Another former Calgary player, pretty good expected like this out. Then they played against Chicago. They were 4-0. 44 shots, and that's 1-0 win. The game-winning goal scored at 24 to first. Barkov made the goal there. Your 3 starters were for Barkov and Forsland. So, yeah, all 3 of them members of the Canada. That would change though in the next game against New Jersey. This is the one thing that I look at in this winning streak and say, they can win that up. They were losing 6-2 after the second period against New Jersey Devils. They won 7-6 in overtime. They got 41 shots in that game. The game-winning goal scored at 145 of overtime by Gustav Forsland. The 3 stars in that game started over to the number 1 star. So Barkov and Forsland are second and third stars in that game. Forsland had been fantastic during this winning streak. Then, against the Buffalo Sabres, they led 3-1 after 2. Got a little tight, but they do win that one 5-3. They got 40 shots in that one, too. 40, 46, 44, 41, 40. Pretty good getting 40 shots. 857 in the third, he targets the game-winning goal. He had 3 stars in Huberdeau, Declare, and October. They get Buffalo Sabres in the 3 centers battle. Now against Toronto, first team on the board this well playoff line. They trailed 5-1 in the second period. And I was watching that thinking, oh, that's a great win for Toronto. Nope. They lost that one 7-6 in overtime. So Florida's winning streak involved 2 7-6 overtime wins when they were trailing by 4 goals. They got 49 shots in that game against Toronto. That's they had the game-winning goal scored at 2:47 of overtime by Jonathan Huberdeau. The 3 stars from Huberdeau, Barkov, and Barnes. They did it from Maple Leafs and it's an overtime game straight off from the Leafs. One of the stars from the Leafs. So against Buffalo, they trailed 3-1 after the first. So again, this is something I've talked about a lot. They can't keep doing it if they want to be 4-3. So on the ball, right? They had 43 shots in that game. The game-winning goal scored in the final minute. 19-22 of the third by Sam Bennett. Your 3 stars of Bennett, Stewart, and Lankard. So, yeah. Then, 7th win on the board is the Nashville Predators, who are the other team that lost the playoff match. They were tied 1-1 after the first, and then they moved to a 4-1 victory. This is the only game on the board that they had less than 39 shots. There's 25 of them. At 15-16 of the second period, Lundell gets the game winning. So, your 3 stars are nice. Lundell and Forsland. So their defense remains the 3 stars. For the defense with 3 on the board. And the Buffs is on their 1. So again, Knights was playing pretty well when he played. And, against Nashville, they played to take the win National team with 3 minutes and punishment. Anaheim, they trailed 2-1 after the second period. Doing this. So they win 3-2 in overtime. So they got a comes up and going, yeah, we can. They had 55 shots in that game. 341 of overtime to keep it over the game on a goal. Your 3 starters are Claire, Gibson, and Huberto. One Gibson, that was a ridiculous performance by them. And then they play Winnipeg on the weekend, and of course, Winnipeg in the playoff home station well with the loss against Florida, and Florida didn't guarantee like 4-0 at the second period with all 4 goals in that second period. That's a goal from crazy. The second period was crazy uncomfortable. So the final score is 6-1, and they're 42 shots. The game-winning goal was actually scored at 147 at first, and it's a 2-0 winning goal. And it's one of the easiest things when you talk about game-winning goals. So the 6-1 victory, the game-winning goal against 2-0 was made 2-0 in the first period. And it's odd to me that we talk about game-winning goals, but I think there's some qualifier with that too. But anyway, hey, your 3 stars are Huberto, Portland, and Robinson. Portland, Robinson, Portland. And then yesterday's victory, they led 4-0 after the second game against Detroit. So what's interesting here is that unlike some of the games this year, the last couple of games, they really haven't left the same thing. They played a little bit. They win that one 6-1, of course, as well. They only have 39 shots. They didn't quite get the 40, so kind of a rough night for them. They survived, actually, on point play. 6:32 of the second, Reinhardt had a game-winning goal. Again, it's the second goal in a 6-1 victory. But it's a game winner. Your 3 stars are Barkov and Lundell and Knight. So Knight's on the board twice, but Bobrovsky's on the board twice. So 4 out of the 10 games for goaltending is amongst the 3 stars. And again, I don't think the series percentage itself is really because really Florida's playing a very style of hockey. It is very wide open. Transitionally. There's a lot of attack. And what happens with that is especially when you only have a counter attack. The thing is that when you get the goal, and you can see here, 7-6, 7-4, 7-6, 4-3. There are 5-3, they go against a little bit. That's what the average rate out today. But yeah, and see that teams are able to take advantage of that. However, Florida's able to score whatever advantage you might get from their attacking spells and attacking spells that result. It really does very much remind me of really that's how far back I have to go to see a team that I look at and say, wow. The thing is, that Florida has the number of 20 goal scorers. And again, St. Louis has that one for them too. Which is St. Louis is going to be really good. Colorado's going to get enough to go to the playoffs too. There are some very good teams right now in the NHL. Florida looks like they are the class of once you get to the playoffs, how is teams going to counter it? How do you counter it? So let's say you shut down Huberto. Great. Like Barkov is doing. Oh, you shut down Barkov and Huberto. The players absolutely. And as I said, Columbus was the first star of the game against Montreal. They get the goals when they need them. Sometimes from guys like Portland, who came out second. Reader has a ton of points as well. He's the next one below right now. And this season, I think, score a lot. And it also feels like this is a team that can lock it down and can. Because you have 4-0 victories here. You have 4-1 wins here, 6-1, 6-1. Over their last 4 games, they've allowed 5 goals. So that tells me this is a team that's starting to play that playoff hockey. They might be scoring less, but in that case it happens. Because over that same period, 12, 15, 19 goals. So they tighten up defensively. And whatever they have, they'll get 7 goals. And we saw Florida. That's the big question for that. So you can make a comment below.
Damn it.
Think off Florida, and you're right. Go back in a couple of months and I made that comment, and I was great. And remember, it's edited, and everybody can see edited and comment afterwards. So, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. And there's my game increase. And yes, I know. Can't even go through or against about the playoff line. So wait, I'm going to do my message. And it's how you outstanding. Nothing compares to a box office in the game box and so throughout the East Coast. I don't know how much you're gonna watch. There are some they wouldn't move up or move down, no matter what they do. So, we'll start with 8 o'clock and 10 o'clock. Calgary going to get Sean Blackhawk. Calgary will be season period over Toronto. November 23rd, they win 5 January 2nd, they won 5-1. So they haven't had much trouble with Toronto. We'll see if that continues to get Toronto. For the Flames, one of the 9 overall record. Very good team.
Still dominating.
I expect a little bit more of a fight from Chicago than what they got from Arizona, but not a lot. Chicago's record is not the great either. It was 25-39-11. Last game was 1-7-2. They did lose their last game in regulation. At home, there's 12-20-6. They're 9 points, 110, 7 points against Seattle. So even though they've been on this skid, they haven't been standing at all. They're the same spot they were against the playoff line. Struggling. The playoff line, 9 p.m. to 6 p.m. to the third time of Washington, Colorado. Here's the interesting one. October 19th, Washington, the Caps were 1963. This is supposed to be more taking the victory last year. The Caps defense down entirely. This is the one taking the down record. What's been broken is terrible, and I guess they will get it. And now look at it.
Please don't inherit him. Goldie, please, buddy. Pretty please.
The Colorado Avalanche with 55-14-6 their last 10 years, 9-0-1, and again, at home they're 31-4-3, and they touched the West, they ended up front row yet, and they're working on it. So, waiting for the Colorado Avalanche thus far, and it's still going. They're hitting 6-7% the Ottawa Senators, and then Seattle Kraken. I want to Seattle Ottawa won the first game on that. Seattle wins this one, why not? I'm not going to have a room to wear your playoff line for much longer, so why not? March 10th, Ottawa Senators won overtime 43 to home. Yeah, Ottawa won 47 overall last night. It was 5-4 overtime loss to their last year. Away from home, they're 15-19, they're 5 points behind the break. They're 4 points ahead of New Jersey. On the Seattle front, they're 24-44-6. Last 10 games, they're 4-6, but they won their last game. At home, they're 13-21-3, and they're 5 points ahead of Arizona. So, I mean, they're staying ahead of Arizona. They're not likely to get anything higher than that. They're still 7 points behind Chicago, but it's all about how you play now. It's all how you win. So I expect to see a lot of the years jerseys in that crowd really quickly. Kenny did 7 to the start coming as well. Yeah, they're all late starts. Carolina against the Arizona Coyotes. Carolina won the start. They're mostly one on Halloween. We'll see how this goes late. Carolina was 40-28 last time. They were 4-5-1. They lost the last two regulation. If they lose against Arizona, they lose this one again. They are 21-12-4 away from home. They have tied with the Rangers. They have more regulation points than they get. First place spot for them right now. They're 7 points to 10th person on the Arizona side. They're 22-48-5. Last 10 games, they lost 6 in a row in regulation. And spectacularly losing those 6 in a row. At home, they're 10-20-5. They're 5 points back to Seattle. And if you're wondering about their lottery standings, they're currently 2 points behind Montreal. They are 32nd overall in the NHL. So, it could be outstanding and have a really good chance for winning the draft one. This season, I think it's going to 7 Pacific, 10 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. It's goal line at home against the Jersey. Vegas, of course, is going to win a lot. December 15th, Vegas wins the Fed at 5-3. Now, for the European They're 4 points back in Ottawa and ahead of Philadelphia. Vegas 41-30-5 in the last 10 games. They're 17-1. They can't lose. They're in a position where they cannot lose. They can't lose this one. They're 21-14-3 at home. They're 3 points back in LA.
Wow, we are dominating this season. Holy shit.
Dallas and Nashville, though Dallas has a season, and then Nashville lost yesterday. So technically they're down 2 seasons. But and so it's 7:30. I swear when I bought tickets to this game, it was 7 o'clock, not 7:30. But anyway, it's fine. Because the football concert, this will feel like an intermission. 4.5 hours. Hey, and again, great concert. Love it. No really. About 5.5 hours late. Perfect. So, big head opener. Hey, Vancouver's won both games with Dallas. November 7th was a 6-2 win, and March 26th was a 4-1 win. I'm looking forward to the game tonight, and I don't know win. I would like to see Dallas win because of the playoff spot, but if Vancouver win, they get closer to a playoff spot. I'm happy either way. If this game goes to overtime, that might be perfect for me. I'm going to be the only one to call it a tie after 6 minutes. So Dallas is 43.7 and 5 the last 10 games. They're playing well, and they keep it on going. They're 19, 17, and 2 away from home and last season from NHL 500. They've got a beautiful record by the road for a long time now. They are tied with Nashville as they bet. They have a game in hand that's home and home. They're 4 points per Vegas. That's why I went to the next point. Yeah, 40 ahead of Nashville and ahead of not the playoff spot. On the next front, they're 37-28 last 10 years. Even won 5 in a row. They are 17-14 and 6 at home. They're 7 points back to both Nashville and Dallas, and 6 points back to LA. Then the road stuff for Vancouver, I don't see it. I don't believe that I saved a couple weeks ago the power rankings. I think having in the playoffs, power rankings, especially something dramatic is happening. But yeah, so there you go. Those are your 6 games for tonight before we get back to the season. So I'm glad that the conference gets today, and that we are going to this tonight, because really standings wise, we're not in a
Those are a little intense. About hydration. Neutrogena Hydro.
Right over there across the courtyard.
Almost everybody got a point.
Tell me, okay? This should text me, okay? Because I have no idea where you went and what time did you leave, okay? And what's that? Roast beef. Roast beef? Yeah.
What's up, real trainers out here? Welcome to the series where I review each Pokemon League arc in the anime. Each episode will be rated from 1 to 10, and the league's overall rating will be determined by the combined rating of each episode. In this video, I'll be reviewing Ash's 4th Pokemon League, the Sinnoh League Lily of the Valley Island Conference. Let's get started. Episode 1. An Old Family Blend. Alright, we all know this episode. It begins with Ash and the gang arriving on Lily of the Valley Island. Now I gotta say, right off the bat, it was truly a great way to start off the league. It didn't copy previous league formulas by spending the whole episode introducing a new rival, or reintroducing Mr. Good Show, or even making Ash light up the torch just cuz. We have Ash's Pokemon, and it's freaking awesome. But before we get to the good stuff, I do have one complaint. This episode is low-key the generic Team Rocket plot we've seen before. Team Rocket try to steal Ash's Pokemon, get blasted off, and then they're all scattered. So now it's up to Ash and the gang to find them all. You see? Generic. But at least it's with the nice twist of reuniting with some of Ash's older Pokemon. At first, he didn't show who Ash transferred over, so you really didn't know who you were going to see, except for Totodile, because he's the only one with a different Pokemon. The first batch was Corphish, Totodile, Snorlax, Bayleaf, and Cyndaquil. It was great to see these guys again. Then Team Rocket comes back, again, and tries to get Cyndaquil, but it evolves into Quailava. This was awesome and totally unexpected. The episode ends with the opening ceremony, and Ash finding out that his first opponent is going to be Nando. Now, like I said, the basic Team Rocket stuff isn't all that great, but luckily the return of Ash's Pokemon really saved it for me. So this episode's rating is an 8 out of 10. Episode 2. League Unleashed. In this episode, the battles finally begin, and it's Ash versus Nando. What's great is that Nando is a character that was introduced in the beginning of the Diamond and Pearl series and became sort of a pseudo-rival for both Dawn and Ash. So it all came full circle. Now what sucks about this episode is that the first two Pokemon go down pretty quickly. Ash actually sends out his newly evolved Quailava, but then it cuts to Team Rocket and then skips over the battle. And then when we do get back to Quailava, it ends up being a quick double knockout. Great. Yeah, it wasn't looking too good for this episode. Luckily, we get the final matchup, and it's between Nando's Kricketune and Ash's Heracross, which is where I feel like the episode really begins. That's right, Heracross, that's right. Heracross makes a return, and he's here to kick some ass. Ash wasn't kidding when he said he wanted to see a head-to-head bug-type battle, and that's exactly what we got. Like, whoever thought that bug-types could have such an awesome battle? An awesome moment is when Heracross falls victim to Kricketsune's sleep and, well, falls asleep. But Ash saw this coming from Nando, so he taught his Heracross sleep talk and then strikes back with a powerful focus punch. There's also the epic finish with Heracross using Mega Horn to destroy the ground from Kricketsune's feet to take the win. Freaking epic. Now, even though this was a great league start for Ash, they still had to rub it in your face that Paul is better than him by having him win his first match without losing a single Pokemon. There's also the fact that Barry mentions in this episode that there's a trainer in the league who uses our Darkrai. So there's definitely a lot of tough competition here, and I like it. This episode's rating is a 7 out of 10. Episode 3. Casting a ball on Barry. This episode was pretty solid, to be honest. It starts off with Ash winning his second match with Snorlax's pulverizing Pancake Z move. Wait, wrong generation. Sucks that we didn't get more Snorlax action, but it's fine, because that's not the main focus of this episode. The real highlight was Barry versus Paul. Ever since Barry was introduced, we knew that he was a Paul fanboy, so this was finally Barry's chance to impress his senpai, and he got wasted. This battle was interesting because it's two of Ash's rivals going at it this time. It's funny though, because Barry was all talk and saying things like him versus Paul was practically like the final match of the league or something, but Paul was pretty quick to put him in his place. Barry couldn't defeat a single Pokemon. You almost feel bad for the dude. His Skarmory got one-shot by Magmorta's flamethrower, Hitmonlee held its own against Ursaring until they activated its Gust ability and got defeated, and Barry's final Pokemon, Empoleon, has to face off against Paul's Electivire. And I think you know how that went. One cool thing to note is the fact that Empoleon activates his Sword ability, but it didn't really help against Paul. Like, at all. At the end of the battle, Barry acknowledges that he lost, but still says that he had a great battle, and Paul agrees, which shows that he's in a total douchebag. It's just to Ash. This episode's rating is an 8 out of 10. Episode 4. Working on a right move. So right off the bat, we see Ash doing some last-minute training, and Infernape ends up learning Flare Blitz. It seems like the Pokemon Ash is going to use for his third round will be Infernape, Torterra, and Glalie. But Conway is flying in the background, and has come up with a strategy to counter that team. Good thing Ash switches things up and sends out his Noctowl. Now, this episode was an awesome one. From start to finish, it was non-stop action. Conway's a pretty interesting trainer, with him having his own unique battle style. So this really made the match stand out compared to other league battles. For example, how Conway's Shuckle uses Power Trick to switch its attack and defense to give Ash some trouble. Even when Ash has the upper hand, Conway then takes the advantage again by using Trick Root, making his Dusknoir super speedy. Luckily for Ash, he had Gibble. Gibble was definitely the MVP of this match. It was awesome as heck when it catches Shuckle's Gyro Ball in its mouth and then destroys it with its newly massive Draco Meteor. I can't think of a better moment to perfect the move. On top of that, it does the same thing again by Storm's Shadow Punch, blasting it with a Draco Meteor, and then the icing on the cake, smacking it dead in the face with the Dragon Pulse. What an awesome finish. The episode ends with the revelation that it's finally time for Ash to face Paul. This episode's rating is a 9 out of 10. Episode 5. Familiarity breeds strategy. Alright, the battle between Ash and Paul has officially started, so you know this episode was super hype. But what I like about this is that before we get to see it, we get a quick look back at what happens prior. Ash was doing some training with Glycor, because it turned out the training was the Air Battle Master, while Paul was talking to his brother Reggie. This then gives us a nice moment where they meet each other. That really helps to build up to their battle. And as for the actual battle, it's intense right from the start. What I like about this episode is that Ash has the upper hand right off the bat. Very different from other battles that he's had with Paul, where he always gets completely destroyed. So this really shows his growth. Like how he sends Infernape to face Aggron once Pikachu wasn't doing so well. Infernape literally wrecks Aggron's face, and I love it. Now, even when Paul tries to throw Ash off with Gaspell's counter shield, Ash is able to make the switch into Weasel to knock it out with an Ice Aqua Jet Ice Punch combo. That was awesome. I gotta say though, seeing Paul use a counter shield really shows how he's changed and adapted Ash's battle style into his own. The episode ends with Drapion attacking Weasel and Reggie revealing that Paul losing his first two Pokemon was all part of his plan. So that doesn't sound good. By the way, are we just gonna ignore the fact that Reggie is totally talking to himself? Anyways, this was a solid start to an epic rival battle conclusion. So this episode's rating is an 8 out of 10. Episode 6. A real rival rouser. Now for the first part of this match, Ash had the upper hand. But for this episode, it was all about Paul. The biggest problem was that damn Drapion. Right off the bat, it takes out 3 of Ash's Pokemon in a row. And that's all thanks to its annoying toxic spikes that kept hurting everybody. Even when Ash tries to counter with Staraptor, Drapion just grabs it and throws it onto the freaking ground like a savage. Can we get some Fs in the chat, please? Seems like everything is going as Paul predicted, but that was his biggest mistake. Ash is the king of unpredictable battle style, so of course he's going to turn things around. He does so by making Infernape use an underground Flare Blitz to get rid of the toxic spikes for good. And with that out of the way, Ash has no problem taking out Ninjas and Frostlass. Things are finally going Ash's way again, and the episode ends with Glycor going up against that stupid Drapion and dodging his pin missiles like a boss. This episode's rating is a 9 out of 10. Episode 7. Battling a Thought in Relation. This is it, the final part of this 3-part rival conclusion, and it was epic. Like I said, Drapion is using Pin Missile, and Glycor is dodging them all like a boss. Crap, never mind. At least it was able to take it out with a Fire Fang. Good on you, Glycor, and good riddance is stupid Drapion. Paul's final Pokemon was Electivire, and although it had a disadvantage, it was able to use Thunder on the battlefield to hurt Glycor and catch it with his 2 tails. So yeah, Glycor is pretty much done though. Next up is an intense battle between Electivire and Pikachu. It was very reminiscent of Ash and Paul's first battle, which was an awesome throwback. Then Pikachu's taken out with Brick Break. Rest in spaghetti, never forget. And now it's time for the final matchup of Electivire versus Infernape. It was intense, fast-paced, and super hype. It looks like Infernape is about to lose, but then it's the moment we've all been waiting for. Infernape uses Blaze and goes Super Saiyan! Everybody loves this moment. It was truly epic. Watching this moment, you can't help but remember all the battles Ash has had and always losing to Paul. But now things have finally changed. Infernape, the Pokemon that Paul abandoned because he thought it was pathetic, was kicking Electivire's ass. It was truly poetic. And the battle ends with an epic collision between Flare Blitz and Thunder Punch. They cause a huge explosion. Then the dust clears. They stare each other down, and then Electivire takes the fall. Ash has finally defeated Paul. Yes! I love this moment. It was done so right, it felt so well deserved. The icing on the cake is when Cynthia is explaining how their battle gave birth to a connection between the two of them. And you really feel this. This is not only the perfect ending to the rivalry between Ash and Paul, but a perfect league episode. This episode's rating is a 10 out of 10. Now on to Darkrai. The final episode. time for this episode. Here we have Ash in the semifinals facing off against Tobias, the Darkrai trainer. Now obviously, Ash gets wrecked pretty hard. I mean, it's a freaking Darkrai, so we kind of saw this coming a mile away. But it still sucks. It doesn't help that even after Darkrai is taken out, he uses a freaking Latios right after.
I'm coming! I'm done here! I filled my purpose! I need to see no more sit down here!
Like, what the heck? How strong is this guy? I will say though, the best moments of the episode have to be when Sceptile makes an epic return by taking out Darkrai, and then Pikachu battles with Latios. With Sceptile, it was awesome, because things seemed hopeless for Ash, but then leave it to one of his ace Pokemon to get the job done. Definitely one of Ash's best moments, despite the final outcome of the match. As for Pikachu's battle with Latios, it was super intense, with Pikachu giving it its all. The Bolt Tackle Iron Tail finish was super epic, and I love it, even if it ended in a tie. Now the conflicting part of this episode is that it has two moments that can easily be considered as one of the greatest in the entire anime. But Ash loses so badly here that it hurts. This honestly felt like a rush way to finish the league and prevent Ash from winning, but I still gotta tip my hat to Pikachu and Sceptile's moments. So you can still get the joy from this episode. This episode's rating is a 7 out of 10. This league's overall rating is an 8.3 out of 10. The best so far. It just did so many things right. One of the most obvious being that Ash brought so many of his older Pokemon back. It was awesome to see him battle with a mix of old and new Pokemon. There was also the fact that they really did well in the rivals department. Not just having Barry and Paul present, but having Mike.
New Astro Protein and Fiber Yogurt for all the things we do. New Astro Protein and Fiber Yogurt. Fill up, fuel up, go.
Party City is now a Canadian Tire, and I've got the party idea. Birthday Rewind! Friday!
What's up, Leo's trainers? Leo's Zach here. Welcome to the series where I review each Pokemon League arc in the anime. Each episode will be rated from 1 to 10, and the league's overall rating will be determined by the combined rating of each episode. In this video, I'll be reviewing Ash's 6 Pokemon Leagues, the Kalos League Lumiose Conference. Let's get started. Episode 1. A League of His Own. Alright, this intro episode had a lot to get through. Just like the Unova League, this league decides to say, let's just jump into it, and gets right into the action. A lot faster. It makes sense though, since we already know Ash's rivals, and there's no last-minute league rivals this time. Thank God! The first match is Alon versus baby-ass Trevor, and this was supposed to be the main highlight since it's a freaking Mega Charizard X and Y battle, but Alon sweeps him pretty quickly. Damn. Kind of disappointing that it ends so quickly, but who are we kidding? It's Alon. Now what I really found interesting in this episode is how they're handling Ash. They really want to hammer it down that Ash is super serious about winning this time. Unlike that joke of the Unova League. This hoodlum looking trainer didn't get 8 badges